Hi, everyone. Mike White here. Welcome to this week's vlog post. Well, it's been another crazy week. A lot of information that's become available. The Fed meeting yesterday. We go on and on about the conversations that we have to have about, Fed rate hikes, and we've covered that a number of times. So I'm not going to bore you. But the reality of it is, there are a lot of people who are going to spin this a lot of different ways, and it really made me think, especially with a few other things that are going on. I look back and I realized I've made my whole career uh, looking at information and trying to see how that information could be used to produce positive outcomes, no matter what the circumstance was. The old expression, if they give you lemons, make lemonade. It really has always been for me to look at things and try to see, no matter how bleak they were, no matter how bad they looked, that there was always a positive direction to be had. And maybe that's because when I started in the business, rates were in the 15 to 18% range. People customarily paid 3, 4, 5, 6 points to get a deal. There were times that you'd get deals approved and you sat at the closing table hoping the wire would show up. All of those things were painful and stressful, but on the same token, working through the process and finding a way to navigate that to making it a better experience for the client and the referral partner led to a pretty nice career for me and provided me with a lot of insight that I think most people don't have, perspective. And I guess that's what they say: with age comes a certain amount of experience. Whether or not that can be classified as wisdom or useful uh, hasn't been apparent. But as rates have gone from 2.5 to 6 or 6.5, I've been through rising rate environments, and many people haven't been through this type of situation. And the markets with this volatility, they're looking for direction, and many people haven't been through these types of things. And I think what makes it worse is, in today's era of social media, it's always tough to navigate when there's a large segment of the population that is really focused on generating clicks and views than they are providing accurate and reliable information. It's always slanted in a way, or the headline is always in such a way to make sure that people clicked on it because it fed into fear. And we all know fear is a much larger motivator than opportunity is. And so to me, I've always reached for the opportunity side of the equation, because there's not much I can do about people's fear other than to overcome it with shedding light on it and providing strategies to make it work and to see what a positive outcome could be. And so we're dealing with the national news, and we've talked about this before, about how a national headline impacts your local market. And it's the same way that I approach every site visit, every new client. What do they do? How do they do it? What do they like to do? What does their market look like? Who's their average borrower? And then developing the path and the strategies for that person to execute. Because yes, the Fed rate announcement has an impact on us all, but for most people, not in the way they believe it does. Um, to me, the Fed rate is just, another benchmark that's out there for us to look at and realize, okay, they followed through with another rate hike. We're going to have to see how the markets look at it. To me, I think there are more hikes that are going to happen, and I don't think we're going to stabilize this marketplace for a while. And some of the reason I look at that is, just looking at the data, and amongst all the mayhem, the 1 and 2 year Treasuries are over 4%. The 7 is at 3.68 as the close of business yesterday, and the 10 was at 3.53. And the 30-year has been hanging in there. It's been, hanging steady right around 3.5 to 3.6 through all this volatility in the 1s, 2s, 7s, and 10s. It really has kind of looked back. It's reached this point, and it's waiting to say, hey, if the Fed is serious, we're going to deal with some short-term pain, but we're going to come out the other side of this. And I think, to me, that is the light at the tunnel, letting me know that, we've got some short-term obstacles. And the biggest short-term obstacle after this Fed meeting, yes, there'll be another Fed meeting in October. Or I guess now it'll be, beginning of November. But the point is, in November, we've got the elections. I don't think anything the Fed's going to do in the fourth quarter is going to be as significant as the November midterm elections. And I think it's something that you have to look at and realize it could make a dramatic impact one way or the other on where we're going to go. And the other part about this is looking at the positive, is saying, people freaking out over, 6% interest rates or what have you. And the reality of it is, if you look at a chart, and I've begged you to pull charts up. And if we go back to 1971, the average interest rate on a 30-year fixed rate loan was 7.76. So you're telling me people didn't buy and sell houses and were perfectly thrilled with getting a house and buying a house and owning a home? Again, remember, the average over the last 30 some odd years is 7.76. The facts are really that mortgage rates were above 6% from 1974 to 2004, and then again 2006 to 2008. We were 6% or higher on average. Maybe some of those times you can't remember. Maybe you weren't in the business. But 2006 to 2008 wasn't that long ago. And yes, I know it's been a steady downhill thing. And yes, I know everybody'd rather have 2.5, but look at what's happened to prices on everything. I mean, yeah, gas has come back down a little bit, but it's still almost twice as much as it was a couple of years ago. And we're dealing with higher utility bills, and we're going to deal with higher food prices, and all these other things are higher. But on average, so are incomes. And so when we look at those incomes and say the startling information that a significant number of car payments now are over $1,000 a month. How do you complain about a 6% mortgage rate if people are out there spending $1,000 a month or $800 a month or $600 a month on a car payment? You have to wrap your mind around $5 for a cup of coffee. If these are the things that people are doing, it's the allocation of their income. And I think we really have to look at the mechanics behind it and say, it comes down to the monthly payment. It's the same thing we've always talked about. It is the payment. What's their monthly payment in relationship to their gross monthly income, which is the same set of numbers that we qualify people on all the time. And it's important to look at that. And yes, I wish rates were 5 or 4 or lower. And maybe, we get back there. But has waiting ever been the best plan? To all those people who got out of the housing market last August of 2021, who've watched their rents go through the roof, or they were looking for a reason and they're still where they were, and now the house that they were looking at that they didn't want to spend $500,000 for at 3% interest or 3.5% interest, and I can tell you the number of clients of mine who had buyers who were pre-approved in the 2s and lows 3s that freaked out when we approached 4. Remember the bumper stickers I put out there and said, oh, 4%, I can't take a 4% rate. Well, I'm going to wait till they come back into the 3s and 2s. What are those people doing now? How does 6 look at you? And what are those home prices? Because despite what everybody's talking about, they're price of housing is not going to plummet. The data is against that very premise. There are still more household formations than there are units being built to house them. And let's not even get started about what's happening to the more than 2 million people who came across the border so far this year that we know about. Forget the ones that we don't. So the reality is there's going to be stress on the real estate market, and there's going to be stress in the mortgage arena. And I'm not trying to belittle that, but I'm saying it's manageable. You have to look at it. You have to look at the positive lights to say, hey, I get into my house now, at least I know what that principal and interest payment's going to be. I can make the commitment to that. And after the midterm elections or down the road, if things get better or the mortgage industry market improves, hell, I can always refinance. But what if this trend at 6 doesn't stop till we get to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 or higher? 6 is going to look pretty damn good if that's what happens. The reality of it is it's not about what the rate is. It's always been about the payment. So I just want to bring that up. And the last thing that I want to put out there, and it's got nothing to do with a lot of stuff other than it's personal. I want to quick shout out to my friend Barry Habib of MBS Highway. I've known Barry. We go back to the Todd Duncan sales mastery days back in the 90s. He was always a really good guy. He was doing loans in New Jersey when I was doing loans in New York, and had the opportunity to send him some business, and he had the opportunity to send some business in our direction. He's always been there as the type of individual that would talk to you or give you some advice or work through a problem. And he's always been one of those people that I've admired who never forgets a face or a name. Much better than me for sure. But he's always been a really good person. And I had a client of mine, Megan Cloud, who was out in Las Vegas where he was speaking, and she was really impressed by what he was saying. And we had talked about him in the past. She has MBS Highway as a tool that she loves using and helps her a great deal. And I told her when she texted me that he was speaking, I said, let's go up and talk to him. Tell him I said hello. And he was gracious enough to talk with her and give her some of his time, and actually even sent a video back to me saying hi. And yesterday happened to be my grandson's 7th birthday, and he gave a shout out to my grandson on that video, which, it's the little things. Barry's one of those guys, when you know somebody as long as I have, and if you're in the mortgage business as long as I am, you realize people like Barry come along few and far between. And I cherish those relationships with the people that I know like him, and I appreciate him more than he knows. And his product, MBS Highway, I think he's developed to be something that I rely on a daily basis. And as somebody who is a charter member of MBS Highway, I pay for it. He doesn't give it to me for free. I don't own any tools that suppliers give me. If they're worth owning, I'll pay for them. And the reality of it is, whether it's that or any other tool, you should have access to information. But more importantly, somebody like Barry who can give you perspective, I think is bigger than anything. And so if you haven't had a chance, take a look at his website or get to see him speak when he's out there. And as always, if you have questions or comments, it's Mike at imtcoaching.com. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.